Hi and welcome to my channel, Emma Mentel, health practitioner. In this video, I would like to just mention a few of my most important considerations for fasting, shorter fasts and longer fasts, as well as why I feel fasting is such an incredible tool to enable healing and repair in the body. For many of my clients and participants on my fasting courses, the initial idea of fasting represents somehow of a restrictive approach. People are a little bit resistant when they think about not eating, and that's completely normal and understandable. As a society, we've been indoctrinated with the idea that we need to eat frequent meals, eat every day, and that going without food somehow is not good, natural, or supportive for the body. So the first thing I try to get my clients and participants, and I would like you to consider as well, is that instead of thinking of fasting as a restrictive measure, that staying without food or removing certain foods from your diet is more of a choice to abstain. Removing certain foods from your diet, for example, gluten and sugar, is a very much a choice to go without that which might trigger inflammation, trigger high blood sugar, insulin resistance, and so on. And if we think of our ancestors, they didn't eat in the morning, they didn't have rusks at tea time, they didn't eat a lunch and then again a snack in the afternoon and then supper. It was sometimes very much erratic, and there might have been days that they've gone without food. So for me, when I considered initially the benefits of fasting, I was very curious about what would happen in the body when I removed food, and especially when I removed certain foods. And for me, it's been absolutely life-changing, and it's been such an enlightening experience, because I realized that we were ultimately designed to vary the way that we eat, how much we eat, how often we eat. And that in itself is a first step towards embracing the unknown. I've learned to befriend hunger rather than resist it. And that is where I feel I can really add a lot of knowledge. And as you become more educated about the choices that you make, and as you start to explore the fasting options, you might find that your body really can start to heal and repair all kinds of things. Even chronic illnesses can start to clear up. There was research done, and this person won a Nobel Prize for his research in autophagy. In let me just see here, I think it was in 2016, Osumi won a Nobel Prize for his research, and the process of autophagy is something that happens naturally in the body after about 17 to 18 hours of going without food. Autophagy is the process, it's a mechanism that happens in the cells, and it's all about recycling, clearing up, clearing out any faulty components in the cells. So autophagy is actually a very helpful process for people, especially when there's a lot of inflammation and a lot going on metabolically. For example, arthritis, gout, insulin resistance, digestive conditions, and much more. So the cell starts to repair itself and it becomes more optimal. And that might come as a surprise to you, but I think that's the first idea that we should really consider and embrace when we consider something like a fast. I have a lot of clients and participants on my courses who are very familiar with the 16-8 approach, where there's 16 hours between the last meal and the next meal, and that is helpful already when we're trying to improve insulin resistance, when we're trying to improve our sensitivity to carbohydrates, and we're trying to start to make sure that our blood sugar in the morning doesn't remain high. So I use very often, and I suggest that you get the same if you want to fast, is a blood sugar monitor that you can use at home. It's a quick AccuCheck, and I will explain in a later video how I use that. So you might want to know if fasting is for everybody, and the answer is, for most people it really is beneficial. Can anybody start on a long fast? And my answer would be that you should really prepare yourself. In my online fasting courses, I guide people on a process to initially first remove all the inflammatory foods and the foods that contribute to high blood sugar and blood sugar spikes. So I don't encourage you to just launch straight into fasting without first doing some preparation and cleaning up the diet, especially if you are somebody who's used to eating a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of bread and pasta, cakes, biscuits, muffins, breakfast cereal. So the initial phase is really important to start focusing on the foods that will help to support a more healthy blood sugar level throughout the day, and then to train your body to start to feel familiar and confident and comfortable with longer periods of not eating. How soon after you've started cleaning up your diet can you do a long fast? So usually within 2 weeks of somebody using a guideline that I use, eating guideline of eating the green list foods, as I call it, it's much easier to start introducing the 16-8 or an 18-6 or even a 20-hour without going without food. And then perhaps get to a 24-hour fast, so where your last meal will be in the evening, and then you will go the whole of the next day and only eat the following evening. We also refer to that as OMAD, 1 meal a day, OMAD, and that for some people is a really simple technique initially, especially when they feel that hunger is less, that they have no issues with satiety, and that they don't feel weak and wobbly when they're not eating. And that might take a little bit longer for some people. If you are somebody who've really had very erratic blood sugars, perhaps you are quite insulin resistant, then it might take more than 2 weeks for you to feel comfortable with your first 24-hour fast. And so from 24 hours, one can look at a 36-hour fast, a 48-hour fast, 72 hours eventually. And I've been doing several 5-day fasts over the last 18 months. And it just gets easier and easier every time, and my body is very comfortable with that. But I would really advise against somebody who's eating a normal diet of lots of bread, lots of carbohydrates, lots of snacks in between, to try out a 5-day fast. You probably won't feel well, and you might really end up hating the process. So for me, when it comes to fasting, I compare it to fitness training. If you're going to train for a marathon and you're not an athlete and you're very unfit, I wouldn't expect you to just run 10 kilometers in the first week. I certainly wouldn't expect you to run a marathon within 2 to 3 weeks. So it's small, consistent steps until you become fitter and until your body feels comfortable with maybe a walk run over 5 kilometers. And so over the weeks and months, the more consistent you are with adding the principles, practicing the eating guidelines, making sure that you're including adequate protein, adequate fat, and where you have really now excluded the inflammatory foods like the breads and the pastas or the gluten containing foods like oats, even lots of potatoes, and especially the seed oils like sunflower oil and canola oil. Over weeks and months, your body will start to feel more comfortable, more confident, and your longer fasts will feel a lot easier. So it's a slow process of taking small steps initially, but just being very consistent with that. And if you are somebody who's been a bit of a carb or sugar addict, it might take longer. Don't give up if it feels hard initially. Just maybe slow down and make sure that you eat all the clean foods, the vegetables, the healthy fats like butter and ghee, coconut oil, olive oil, healthy proteins. I recommend free-range meat, free-range eggs, free-range chicken as much as possible. And if you feel that hunger is a big problem for you when you start to eat less carbohydrates, then a good idea initially is to increase your protein intake and increase your fat intake, but the not inflammatory fats like the ghee and the butter, coconut oil, olive oil. Try not to take the skin off the chicken. Don't buy the extra lean meat. So the free-range meats and the free-range chickens can be very helpful. And if you find that you are struggling to get adequate protein, then there are other tricks that one can try. So that for me is more or less the overview of considering longer fasts and where the process should start. Please subscribe to the channel, please share, and if you have any questions or if you would like to book a one-on-one consultation, my links are all on my channel. If you want to join one of my fasting courses, there are always options to join every few months. At the moment, we are just 2 weeks into my current 8-week course, but I will leave more guidelines and tips on here very soon. Thank you for watching.